Welcome to Share Views with the ever-fragrant Stefania Barbaglio from Cassiopeia Services and our special guest, Lewis Jones from Cornhill Capital. How are you today, Lewis?
Not bad, thank you. Yourself?
I'm very well, and I suppose we're coming off the back of a very good start of the year in your space. Business booming, small caps going the right way for most people. Is that how you found it?
Yes, we've seen a good couple of deals recently, particularly in the first start of the year. We've had a number of deals work out quite nicely for clients as well. So obviously, ongoing from that, people are quite happy to continue participating. We've seen quite a large number of IPOs and placings, discounts to the market, and people are very happy to continue participating in those for the time being.
What do you think is driving all this enthusiasm?
I think the main market has been difficult to trade, particularly sort of FTSE 100. People are pushing all-time highs. No one's really too keen to take a view on that, where they think it's going next, and on that basis, they're looking for other revenue sources, other means to invest in the market, and the IPOs have taken off. A lot of companies are quite keen to get involved with the market near to all-time highs. It boosts valuations in effect, and therefore companies are quite keen to sort of push on with the public offering, and investors are quite keen to sort of push their money into that where they've got nothing else to put it into.
Right, most brokers have an edge or they have a niche. I mean, what would you say that Cornhill's was?
I mean, we offer across-the-board broking services. We go from FTSE 100 stocks right down to AIM and small caps. So we can sort of envisage across the board. We're quite international. We have clients, not only from the UK but Europe, Asia, States as well. We do work, with a number of parties sort of globally that help us sort of facilitate deal flow. We deal with sort of retail clients right up to large, institutions as well. So on that basis, we're able to offer a wide range of products that other brokers might not necessarily have access to.
Right, these days a lot of talk about the regulators and they've got a sort of stranglehold on the market. What's your experience there?
Compliance is certainly stricter. Everything we do is vetted. Various risk warnings everywhere. We have to say risk warnings to clients when they participate in deals as well. But I think not necessarily a bad thing. Investors need a bit more protection. They need a bit more help going forward, and as financial professionals, that's what we're here to do.
At the end of the day, it's the market is the market, and it's going to be volatile. It's going to be difficult. How much do you advise clients, or how much can you advise clients?
So we have something called our annual client review. So it's basically a fact find. We go through the whole form of the client. It gives us an understanding of what they're looking for. Once we have that in place, we can give advice to clients. On the main market, IPOs is not such an issue. On small cap stuff, it becomes a little bit more different. We have to have high risk investors who are looking for capital growth because invariably these companies don't pay a dividend. But we can do a lot of execution only business. It's just we have a larger advisory base to work from, and it's a lot easier to speak to people sort of one-on-one and have an open conversation with them, and that's all down to the fact find we do with them.
Lewis, if we look at the company that you are doing deals with, and particularly at your IPOs, I can see that you are actually working with companies that are a little bit bigger than the small cap space, where all the city stockbroker they are working with. Would you like maybe to tell us a little bit more about the recent transaction and particularly the IPOs, because I can see you have done quite a few IPO since the beginning of the year.
Exactly. So I would suggest we've done probably between 30 and 40 new issues since the start of the year,
which is quite impressive. I mean,
yeah, we get access to a lot of deal flow, both from sort of large houses right down to small cap brokers who are doing their own deals, and we get shown them. We work on a basis that obviously if we can build our own client base, we have a larger institution base, we get access to the bigger deals, and likewise they like access to some small deals as well. So for instance, one of the IPOs we did this year was Arix Bioscience, which listed back in February, raised £100 million and a market capitalisation of 184 million. And the share price has been a little bit shaky, it's down about 5% since the start of the year, or since the IPO, but it's a long-term play.
And that is an healthcare.
So they invest in healthcare and life science businesses, and feed them funding to progress their products.
Okay, so we see quite a lot of interest in healthcare and pharmaceutical company. What's the other sector? You can see IPOs.
So we've seen financial services becoming a bit more as people start to understand them. There's less of a stigma around financial services. People are quite keen to get involved with those. So one we saw this year was Alpha FX. Yeah. It listed early part of this year, raised about £25 million at 196 pence per share, and then now trading up to 310 as of yesterday. So share price has done very well. They provide FX currency solutions to a lot of their corporate customers. A profitable business as well, which is rare for the AIM market. They've listed with a revenue, a turnover, and a profit. So people would like to see that. The deal was heavily oversubscribed, and obviously we managed to get access to some stock.
Okay, if we look at the small cap space, I understand that you were involved with the Saffron Energy IPO, yes. Which was the first Turner and Pope investment IPO. I mean, I know the company very well, gas producer in northern Italy. The IPO at 5p, now they're trading around 7p, but the share price went up to 9p, you know, on the expectation of the first gas at Bezzecca. We actually happened a week ago. So now the share price is just going back a bit. What's your feeling about it? But mainly why you got involved, in that specific IPO? What were the key element to say, right, that's a good opportunity for investors, although, as we know, IPO, they don't have a trading history, so it's always difficult to judge what could be, the upside for investors, but,
So Saffron was something we looked at. Obviously, they had a lot of involvement historically on their assets from the likes of Eni. You put a big name brand behind an oil and gas play, that gives a lot of confidence to some investors. We still see large flows of mining and oil and gas discounted placings and IPOs as well. This one so far this year seems to have been the most attractive to a lot of people. We saw a lot of retail interest in the deal, and therefore, it made fundamentally sense to try and get involved. It's a near-term oil and gas play, which I think people like. Everyone likes a bit of speculation, but at the same time, they prefer to have a bit of a certain thing. And if the company are definitely going to be producing, then they're definitely going to have revenues at some point in the future. It's only a small market cap. It's about £7.7 million roughly at the moment. And going forward, if they can continue producing gas at the rate they have, put out a few revenue targets, it might boost the market a little bit. And you see the share price go small better.
Yeah, and there's only one of the few actually oil and gas company that is actually producing, because all we see is exploration, and then there is no cash coming back to the company.
There are a number of listed sort of producers in the small cap market. It's just some of them are very small amount of production, or negligible amounts that don't really make much of a difference to their bottom line because their costs are too high. As we've seen with the recent drop in oil and gas prices, a lot of small cap producers are sort of forced out of the market. And their assets aren't particularly attractive anymore due to valuations. All
right, so we're going into this another event risk with I don't know if it's a risk, but the general election on June the 8th. Do you think that's going to influence the market at all?
I think you might see a bit of risk factored in. I think people are fairly certain Theresa May's. They're quite confident that she's the front runner in this particular election. I think you might see a bit of caution going forward in particular IPOs. People might be a bit more reluctant to come to the market and raise cash now. However, we haven't seen that factored in yet. We have seen a number of deals still coming through. And what about the sectors for the rest of the year? I mean, in a way, the first quarter was so good; it's almost an impossible act to follow. Yeah. What do you think? Where do you think the easiest areas are now? So you normally get the adage, "Sell in May and go away." We haven't seen that as of yet, and it's very tight to that timeline, as you'd imagine. People normally the deal flow sort of goes a bit quiet. We still have a good pipeline of business going into May and certainly into June as well. We're seeing a number of property deals come through in the real estate investment trust side. So we did one recently called LXI REITs, which was a pill hunt deal. They raised quite a considerable amount of cash, a market cap of around about 138 million at the time. They're up around about 6% for a REIT, which is good going in a couple of months. Plus they're looking at a dividend yield of around about 5 to 6%. So again, you've got a nice ongoing story there. Tritax Big Box announced a big fundraise 3 days ago, which we're going to be trying to get involved with as well. And there are a number of good property deals coming through to the market, which I think people are getting quite excited about. Right, and if people like what they hear now, what sort of capital do you need to get involved on a regular basis? Surprisingly, not as much as you think. I mean, a lot of the deals we do, there's a minimum investment of £1,000, so it's open to your small retail guys. On the intermediaries offers, so things like the LXI REIT that I mentioned, that can go directly into an ISA as well. So it means that if you're looking to buy shares, you can do it directly into an ISA and save yourself on the income tax.
And if we look at your client base, there are obviously retail investors, there is a high net worth individuals, small hedge fund. Are they all based in UK, or you have more a global reach and contacts? Not at all. We have a number of customers overseas. Europe obviously being a big market, but even into a place like Asia.
You know, we have a large client base out of places in sort of Asia and Europe as well, in fact. So we do have sort of quite a broad range of client base, right from retail up to sort of institutional and you know, beyond that.
That's it for this edition of Share Views. Thank you to Stefania and thank you to Lewis Jones from Cornhill Capital.